should play girls' sports.
They're not boys. I'm not going to listen to transphobia at this table. I am not going to listen to you call a trans girl a boy.
Are you going to allow me to finish my explanation?
When you use a word that's a slur, I'm going to...
What's happening, everybody? The other day on the failing news network known as CNN, one of the most ridiculous arguments made by a liberal, and that's saying something, occurred live. It was sparked on CNN when a conservative political commentator, Shermichael Singleton, made the benign, factual point that a lot of families in the U.S. don't want boys playing in girls' sports. Well, that was the last straw for one fruitcake on the CNN panel that erupted at what he believed to be an outrageous assertion. That said, let's watch Shermichael Singleton sit in disbelief at what he was witnessing. Let's go.
There's the base and there's the swing, right? So obviously the anti-trans ads, which I found absolutely deplorable. I worked as an LGBTQ activist for 10 years. I think it's outrageous, and I'm terrified for my trans friends and family members. Those ads were for the base, right? That was to motivate the base to get out there, and that base, that MAGA base, and the sort of, I would call, Christian nationalist base, they did show up. But I don't think that is what motivated the swing voters to vote for Trump. I do think there's a mismatch between, Democrats are really good at offering a lot of solutions.
I don't think that's right. That's just for the base.
Yeah, not in the closing message.
I would disagree a little bit with that.
I'm not so sure personally.
I think there are a lot of families out there who don't believe boys should play girls' sports.
They're not boys. I'm not going to listen to transphobia at this table. I am not going to listen to you call a trans girl a boy.
Are you going to allow me to finish my explanation?
When you use a word that's a slur, I'm going to interrupt. That's not how it is. They're not boys. They're not boys. They're not playing girls' softball. I'm not going to sit there and listen to that.
Let's reset for a second, because, look, this is a really heated issue, right? And Shermichael, I know you. I know that you understand that people have different views on this. I think out of respect for Jay, let's try to talk about this in a way that is respectful.
Okay, so let me rephrase this, since I'm being targeted here.
Just to be clear, you are not being targeted.
I am, but it's okay.
I'm specifically saying that I know that you are not intending to be transphobic.
He should know that I'm not. But he wants to sit here and
bloviate. I'm saying you're using a phrase that you know.
So the way regular people interpret it, that's not regular people. That's not regular people.
There's no consensus that these are actually boys. This whole thing about trans girls is a canard. We're talking about a tiny, tiny sliver of the population.
That may be the
and
case,
we're using
but
that
my point in terms of its effectiveness.
Just get to your point.
My point in terms of its effectiveness. Regular people with children look at these things and they say, you know what, this is a bit too far. I do not agree with this. I don't like this. I think Democrats are going way too much to the left on social issues. They're uncomfortable with it. A lot of people believe that. A lot of families believe that. You may disagree with that reality, but that's why Republicans kept running those ads over and over and over again, because they saw the metrics suggested that they were working.
In those ads over and over again, and using rhetoric like you just used, saying this is boys playing girls sports. First of all, we're talking about 5 people in the entire country.
You would prefer?
We're talking about trans girls being allowed to play with the people who are in their gender. And if you don't believe, you don't have to listen to me. Listen to the American Medical Association, the American Psychological Association.
The American Medical Association.
Those ads were for the MAGA base. By MAGA base, do you mean normal people? Because you don't need to be a Christian nationalist because you don't want naked dudes hanging dong in a women's locker room. That may be the shortest clip I've ever played on this channel, and there is so much to talk about. Before I dive into the substance, can I just point out that isn't this just another instance of how soft and unhinged liberal nutjobs are? I can't think of much that would make me get emotional at all, much less over saying boys shouldn't play in girls' sports. I say this with all seriousness. These people are sick, and I genuinely pray that they get the help they need. Seriously, no sarcasm in that statement. Now, there's always a possibility that I could be wrong in my takes on this channel. I always encourage people to let me know. I'm willing to change my mind, but and maybe it's just a fact I'm old-fashioned and I don't realize it. The world has kind of gone by me and I didn't keep up with the times. But just to be on the record here, I always thought men were men and women were women. And guys that cut their off were just, well, nuts. Now, I don't know if you actually caught it or not, but that dude actually said that Shermichael Singleton used a slur. Are you hearing this? According to this guy, boys is now a slur for trans people. What the is happening? And did he actually say that there's no consensus that these are boys? And to that same point, again, there's not a consensus. Well, I'd say there are 75 million people that would disagree with you, you silly goose. And I'm sure most of you remember these ads, but just to refresh anyone's memory, they focused on Kamala Harris on camera talking about paying for transgender surgery for inmates. And the tagline for the ad was, she doesn't care about you, she cares about they, them. Don't take my word for it. If you want, go back and look at the ads. But this guy also said that the ads were lying and offensive. What were they lying about? Also, the notion that they are anti-trans is ridiculous. All they were pointing out is what Kamala Harris has said in the past and where her priorities lie. And I don't know the exact metrics that they measure these things by. However, those ads were, again, by whichever metrics, the most effective in the Trump campaign. So that clearly debunks his idea that this only played to the MAGA base. We've been tiptoeing around this subject for a long time, not wanting to offend anyone. I think people are just sick of it, man. To be honest, it's a surprise to me. I thought the trans thing would grow more and more and more, and people would just accept it, and that's how things would go. And while there's still a lot of work to be done to not let these types of things be the norm in our society, it's pretty cool to know that this ad resonated with so many people. Now, what I'm about to say are two things that you probably already know, but for me, the response to these ads confirmed two things. One, people only voted for Kamala Harris that hated Donald Trump in the depths of their soul. Because this should turn off 99.9% of humanity if they didn't have some deeply passion, disdain, anger, reason for it not to. And that reason for those people was Donald Trump. And number two, this proves, again, what we all knew, that the media was doing everything they could to get her elected. Because this should have been the story of the campaign. If any other politician uttered that statement, everyone would be like, what? Don't tell anybody that. It would have been and should have been the front page story of every newspaper in the country. It's the craziest statement. And she's caught on camera saying it. It's bananas. A politician saying on camera, I want to fund transgender surgery for inmates. You're telling me with any other candidate, that wouldn't be the biggest story of the campaign? It's the dumbest take ever. So I'll wrap up with this. And I hate that I have to say this every time I cover such an obviously flawed argument. But to be clear, I do not care what an adult wants to do with their body. All I ask is don't groom and influence our children with your fringe ideology. Don't affirm anything for them because they're fucking kids. Don't give our kids hormones and puberty blockers, and don't butcher their genitals. My final request, don't take away from women's achievements because your delusion says that you have a right to compete in their sports. Oh, and finally, I never thought this was controversial, but I always thought it was bad for men to beat women. Let that sink in. You see what I did there? Beating like punching, but also beating like winning in sports. Okay. Anyway, that's it for today's show. If you, like me, somehow get entertainment out of watching sick psychopaths spout nonsense like this guy, then click on one of the two videos that just popped up on your screen. Otherwise, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here today. The end.